In the far reaches of the universe, on a planet where the skies shimmered with hues of purple and gold, lived a race of beings known as the Zeltrians. Renowned for their unparalleled beauty and advanced technology, they lived in a state of harmony, untouched by the chaos of the wider galaxy. Among them was Lyra, a young Zeltrian woman who had always been curious about the myths of other worlds, especially Earth. Lyra had heard tales of the human race, creatures filled with passion and unpredictability, emotions that Zeltrians had long evolved beyond. Her fascination grew until one day she decided to embark on a journey to Earth, disguising herself in human form. Her sleek silver spaceship hummed as it entered Earth's atmosphere, landing discreetly in a secluded forest. As Lyra wandered through the dense woods, she felt an unfamiliar thrill coursing through her veins, a mix of anticipation and fear. Suddenly, she stumbled upon a lone cabin nestled among the trees. The lights were on, and curiosity got the better of her. Inside the cabin, Jacob was nursing a cup of coffee, trying to unwind from a long day. He was a reclusive artist, living in the wilderness to escape the distractions of city life. When he heard a knock at the door, he wasn't expecting anyone. Opening the door, Jacob was stunned by the sight of Lyra. Her beauty was otherworldly. Long, flowing hair that seemed to shift colors in the light, and eyes that sparkled with an intensity he'd never seen before. She introduced herself with a voice that was both soft and commanding, and Jacob invited her inside, intrigued and more than a little captivated. The conversation between them flowed effortlessly, despite the fact that Lyra was new to earthly customs. She spoke of distant stars and galaxies, of life beyond what Jacob could imagine. In turn, Jacob shared his art, showing her the raw, emotional sketches he created. Lyra was mesmerized by his passion, something she had never encountered in her own world. As the night deepened, their connection grew stronger. Lyra found herself drawn to Jacob in ways she couldn't explain. She had come to Earth seeking knowledge, but what she was beginning to experience was something far more profound. The days turned into weeks, and Lyra's bond with Jacob grew ever stronger. They spent their time exploring the forest, discussing art, and sharing stories. Jacob was enchanted by Lyra's mysterious aura, while Lyra was fascinated by the intensity of human emotions, especially the new sensations she was beginning to feel around Jacob. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the forest in a warm, amber glow, Lyra found herself standing by the cabin's window, gazing out at the trees. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, grounding her in this strange, beautiful world. She felt a strange mix of emotions, anticipation, curiosity, and something she was slowly beginning to recognize as desire. Jacob approached her from behind, his presence warm and reassuring. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder, and Lyra turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the soft light of the setting sun. She could see the concern in his gaze, the way he seemed to be searching her face for answers. "Lyra," Jacob said quietly, his voice tinged with both affection and uncertainty. "You've been distant tonight. What's on your mind?" Lyra hesitated, unsure how to put her feelings into words. Zeltrians were not accustomed to expressing emotions so freely, but Jacob had a way of making her feel safe, of encouraging her to explore this new side of herself. She took a deep breath and finally spoke. "Jacob," she began, her voice trembling slightly. I'm experiencing things I've never felt before. Emotions, sensations. They're overwhelming and I don't know how to handle them." Jacob's expression softened and he reached out to gently cup her face in his hands. "It's okay, Lyra. You don't have to understand everything right away. Just let yourself feel. I'm here with you." Lyra closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. His warmth seeped into her, calming the storm of emotions swirling inside her. When she opened her eyes again, there was a determination there, a desire to let go of her fears and embrace this new world of sensations. Without another word, Lyra leaned in, her lips brushing against Jacob's. The kiss was tentative at first, soft and searching. But as their lips met, a surge of electricity shot through Lyra's body, awakening something deep within her. The sensation was unlike anything she had ever experienced, a mix of warmth, pleasure, and an insatiable need that seemed to grow with every passing second. Jacob responded in kind, his arms wrapping around her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, becoming more urgent, more passionate. Lyra's hands roamed over Jacob's chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her fingertips. The rhythm of it grounded her, reassuring her that this was real, that she was truly here, experiencing this with him. As their kiss intensified, Lyra felt a warmth spreading through her body, pooling in her core. She could feel her alien physiology reacting to the sensations, her skin tingling with heightened sensitivity. Every touch, every caress sent waves of pleasure coursing through her, making her gasp against Jacob's lips. Jacob's hands moved to the hem of her dress, his fingers brushing against her bare skin. Lyra shivered at the contact, a soft moan escaping her lips. She had never known such intense pleasure, such an overwhelming need. It was as if her body was awakening for the first time, discovering sensations she had never imagined. Gently, Jacob guided her toward the bed, never breaking their kiss. They stumbled together, their movements clumsy with the urgency of their desire. When they finally collapsed onto the bed, Lyra found herself beneath Jacob, her body trembling with anticipation. Jacob paused, his breath heavy as he gazed down at her. "Are you sure, Lyra?" he asked, his voice filled with both desire and concern. "We don't have to rush this." Lyra's response was immediate, her voice firm despite the fluttering in her chest. "Yes, Jacob, I want this. I want to feel everything." With a soft smile, Jacob leaned down to kiss her again, his hands moving slowly, reverently as he began to undress her. Lyra's breath hitched as the cool air of the room brushed against her newly exposed skin, followed by the warmth of Jacob's touch. He took his time, exploring every inch of her body with his hands, his lips, making her shiver with delight. As he undressed himself, Lyra watched him, her eyes wide with both curiosity and desire. His body was different from hers, more solid, more defined. She reached out to touch him, her fingers tracing the lines of his muscles, marveling at the warmth of his skin. When Jacob finally joined her on the bed, their bodies pressed together, the sensation was almost too much for Lyra to bear. She gasped as their bare skin met, her body arching into his touch. Every nerve ending seemed to come alive, her senses heightened to a level she had never known. Jacob moved slowly, giving her time to adjust, to explore the new sensations. His hands caressed her, his lips trailing kisses along her neck, her collarbone, down to the curve of her breasts. Lyra's breath came in ragged gasps, her fingers clutching at the sheets as pleasure surged through her, building with each touch, each kiss. When Jacob finally entered her, Lyra's world seemed to explode into a kaleidoscope of sensation. She cried out, a mix of surprise and ecstasy, her body trembling with the intensity of it. Jacob moved with her, his movements slow and steady, coaxing her higher and higher until she thought she might shatter from the sheer pleasure of it. Their connection deepened with each thrust, each whispered word of encouragement and affection. Lyra felt as if she were merging with Jacob, their bodies, their souls intertwining in a way that transcended the physical. The pleasure was overwhelming, almost too much to bear, but she clung to it, riding the waves of ecstasy as they built to a crescendo. When Lyra finally reached her peak, it was like nothing she had ever imagined. The pleasure washed over her in powerful waves, leaving her breathless, her body trembling uncontrollably. She cried out Jacob's name, her voice breaking with the intensity of her release. Jacob followed soon after, his own climax shaking him to his core. They lay together afterward, their bodies entwined, their breathing heavy and uneven. Lyra was speechless, unable to process the magnitude of what she had just experienced. She had never imagined that a human could elicit such powerful feelings within her, such overwhelming pleasure. She turned to Jacob, her eyes filled with awe and gratitude. "Jacob," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. I didn't know it could be like this. I didn't know I could feel this way." Jacob smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Neither did I, Lyra, but I'm glad we found this together." They held each other close, their bodies still humming with the afterglow of their lovemaking. As Lyra drifted off to sleep in Jacob's arms, she felt a sense of peace, of contentment that she had never known before. She was beginning to understand what it meant to be human, to feel, to love. and she knew that her life would never be the same again. Lyra and Jacob's relationship grew even more intense. Each day brought new discoveries, both in the world around them and in their connection. Lyra found herself exploring not only the physical pleasures of being with Jacob, but also the deeper emotional bonds that were forming. She was learning the intricacies of human love, something entirely foreign to her. They spent hours entwined, exploring each other's bodies with an almost insatiable hunger. Lyra's alien physiology responded to Jacob's touch in ways that astonished both of them. She could feel her body reacting, adapting to the sensations, becoming more sensitive with each encounter. The pleasure was unlike anything she had ever imagined, overwhelming her senses and leaving her gasping for more. One afternoon, as they lay in bed, tangled in the sheets, Jacob asked her, "Lyra, what is it like on your planet? Do they feel like we do?" Lyra smiled softly, tracing a finger along his chest. "Zeltrians are different, Jacob. We've evolved beyond emotions, beyond the physical pleasures that seem so natural to humans. But being here with you, I've discovered something new, something I never knew I was missing." Jacob's heart swelled at her words. He pulled her closer, their bodies fitting together perfectly. "I'm glad you found it with me," he whispered, kissing her gently. As their days together turned into months, Lyra began to worry. She had come to Earth on a mission of curiosity, but now she was faced with a dilemma. Could she return to her home planet, knowing what she had discovered here? Or would she stay, risking everything for the chance to explore this new, passionate existence? The time came when Lyra could no longer avoid the inevitable. Her mission was drawing to a close, and she had to make a choice. Staying on Earth meant abandoning her life on Zeltria, her family, her people. But the thought of leaving Jacob behind filled her with a deep, aching sadness. One night, as they lay under the stars, Jacob sensed the turmoil within her. "Lyra, what's wrong?" he asked softly. Lyra turned to him, tears glistening in her eyes. "Jacob, I have to make a decision. My people are waiting for me. I was only supposed to be here for a short time, to learn, to observe. But now I don't know if I can leave you." Jacob's heart clenched at her words. He had known from the beginning that Lyra wasn't human, that she would eventually have to return to her world. But now, faced with the reality of it, he couldn't bear the thought of losing her. "Lyra," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I don't want you to go. But I also don't want to hold you back from your life. Whatever you choose, know that I'll always cherish the time we've had together." Lyra's tears fell freely now, and she wrapped her arms around him, holding him close. "Jacob, you've shown me a world I never knew existed. You've made me feel things I never thought possible. But I can't abandon my people. I have responsibilities, a life that I must return to." Jacob nodded, though his heart was breaking. "I understand," he whispered. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, Lyra prepared to leave. She kissed Jacob one last time, pouring all her love and gratitude into that final embrace. "I'll never forget you," she whispered against his lips. "You've changed me in ways I can't even begin to explain." And with that, she was gone, disappearing into the forest as silently as she had arrived. Jacob watched her go, his heart heavy with loss. But he knew that their time together had been something extraordinary, something he would carry with him for the rest of his life. As Lyra's ship ascended into the sky, leaving Earth behind, she felt a bittersweet mix of emotions. She was returning to her world, to her people, but a part of her would always remain on Earth with Jacob, in the memories of the pleasure and love they had shared.